And welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of July 6, 2023. All the members are present except Commissioner Vastberg is at home and I'm supposed to read something here. So let's see. Oh, there she is. Hi, Wendy. Hope you're feeling better. The Brown Act authorizes members of the city's planning commission to participate in meetings remotely under certain conditions. Assembly Bill 2449 permits commissioners to participate in city commission meetings remotely when they can demonstrate just cause or emergency circumstances, and when a quorum of the commission is physically present in the city. Commissioner Vastberg is participating in tonight's meeting remotely under AB 2449. Under the just cause exception, given a medical illness. Commissioner Vastberg will be participating in tonight's meeting using audio-visual technology. Commissioners participating remotely under AB 2449 are required to disclose at the start of the meeting whether any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room at the remote location with the commissioner and the commissioner's relationship with the individual. Commissioner Vastberg, would you please confirm that you are the only person 18 years of or older in the room you're teleconferencing from, or else disclose those persons over 18 present with you?
I am the only person present.
Oh, thank you. So as required by AB 2449, all votes taken tonight will be done by roll call. So I think that's it for that. Is that enough, Matt?
Yes, that's enough.
All right. So the Pledge of Allegiance, Glenn, could you lead us in that?
Right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance
To
to the United States
for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Thank you, Glenn. So let's see. Next is approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Now we have to vote by roll call.
Unfortunately, now it's a roll call vote. So do we have a secretary or roll call vote?
You want me to ask? Okay.
Yeah, go for
So
it.
Greg,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
I'm aye, Bob,
Aye.
Josh. Okay. And Wendy.
Wendy.
Aye.
Thank you. Announcements and introductions. Greg, do you have any? Dennis?
I actually have a couple. Number one, I wanted to, after our flag salute this evening, the celebration that we had at the high school, Calabasas High School on Tuesday, 4th of July, was one of the best we've ever had. And I want to thank the staff and the school district leadership for, hosting us at the Calabasas High School. We had a sold out crowd and it was fantastic. And some surprises in the show, and the music was terrific. The other thing is not so happy and pleasant, but I wanted to actually request the commission to adjourn in the memory of Mel Wolf. Mel passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he was an often participant in our fine arts festivals, a fabulous watercolorist, and sold many pictures or paintings, watercolors of the scenes, everything from the Commons to the City Hall to the landscapes and special places in Calabasas, including Old Town and so forth. And he will be very much missed. And I would like us at the end of our meeting to adjourn in his memory.
Thank you. Let's see, Bob? Announcements, John?
Nothing tonight.
Wendy?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Well, I have a couple. One, I agree with Dennis. I attended also, and that 4th of July celebration was amazing, and I do want to thank the staff as well. And the music group, the Suffragettes, they appear at Disneyland, and
Great name for an all-girl band.
yeah, they were really good. Anyway, the other announcement is, and I'm sure a lot of you read this, but there is significance in this. It affects us. Is that Monday was a record temperature, global temperature And Tuesday beat that. And it was a half degree warmer than the record set several years ago. And obviously climate change affects new development and planning for emergencies. So with that, we proceed to oral communications. Is there anyone who wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? I don't have any cards for that. So then, and nobody, this is a hybrid meeting. So there are people out in the ether, right? I mean, watching. Okay. So then we get to the consent items, 1 and 2. And the problem is on number 1, I want to pull it for discussion. So 2 is the approval of minutes for June 15, 2023. Does anybody want any changes, or is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah.
All those in favor, Greg,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
I'm aye, and Wendy, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was not at, although I watched the meeting, I wasn't there, so I'll abstain.
All right, thank you. Next is the adoption of the resolution 2023-755 approving file number site plan review 2022-005. Let me get to that one because I had a number of issues there. The first is this is regarding a 1,008 square foot addition at 26223 Hatmore Drive. There are 3 issues I wanted to speak about, and this has nothing to do with, in the end, I will support this with changes. The first one was the pervious surface issue. We had agreed that the project must comply with the city's pervious surface requirements, and that actually isn't something we can waive. So line 2, paragraph 2 of the first finding on page 3. Let's see, if you look at the second paragraph there on page 3, or the paragraph at the bottom on page 3, it says the proposed work complies with all development code standards, et cetera, and pervious surfaces and other requirements. Well, we don't know if it requires a pervious surface, so I would take that out. And I know that I know staff added condition 15 on page 9. And if you look at that, it states that the applicant will convert either the existing hardscape in the rear or the existing driveway in the front to permeable pavers. That was a suggestion I threw out, but I don't know how we know that either of those will meet the 50% pervious surface requirement. I don't know if anybody measured this out yet. It should read that the applicant will submit plans showing the measurements and calculations of pervious surfaces so that the project meets the requirements of municipal code section 17.26.040, which is 50% of the lot must be pervious for lots less than 1/3 of an acre in size. Is that okay?
My understanding is that standard has already been met by the project.
Yeah.
That as proposed, it meets the 50% pervious surface standard.
So you weren't here at the last meeting.
I reviewed the tape though.
Oh.
I understand. I'm also not finished. My understanding is that it meets that standard without either the hardscape driveway or existing rear hardscaped area being converted into permeable pavers. I also understand there's a dispute on the commission at least among the commission about that math, but staff has provided the math that shows that the standard is met at the 50% level.
No, staff did not provide anything. It just made a conclusory statement that it met the standards. And if you looked at the plan, you would see it was maybe 1/3 pervious. And I showed it to Tom. It wasn't even close to 50%. And there were no measurements. There was just a statement that it met the standards. And so we need to have measurements. So have you received the measurements yet?
My understanding is staff has received that information and had it before, that the standard has been met. So what I would suggest is option 1 would be delete condition number 15 and instead rely solely on condition number 1 and condition number 2. The proposed project shall be built in compliance with the approved plans on file. And 2,
No, I want to see
number 3,
it.
actually, not number 2. The project is depicted on those sets of drawings that are already approved, noting that the project as proposed already meets that standard.
No,
If
it's
the
not.
commission doesn't find that it meets the standard, then we need to
No.
articulate how it doesn't meet the standard.
It's not true. We did not ever see any plans where it met the 50% standard.
My understanding is that that is
Well,
true.
then show us.
I don't have the plans in front of me, but that was the
So
plans that were
do you have
previously
the
in front of the
plans to
commission.
show it?
Yeah, it was in the packet that was distributed at the last meeting. They're
Yeah.
the same plans.
But that's why I showed you the plans and they did not meet the 50% standard.
Yes, and if I could
Chair,
clarify,
Yeah, just show me.
I took what you handed out. I measured it. It met the standard.
The yellow and the,
That's, you didn't identify everything in your diagram. You missed some areas that were landscape.
yes, I
When you
couldn't.
measured everything,
Okay, good,
and I remeasured myself, it met the standard
good.
on the diagram that you had. But using all of the landscape.
That diagram did not show it. So can you show,
Can we screen share the diagram that Mr. Bartlett confirmed it meets the standard on? I don't know who has got the computer.
it'll give me a moment to,
all right, so let me move on to the next issue. So the next issue is.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Just while you are going to the next issue, is Jacqueline, are you going to go ahead and do the calcs?
if you would like to see it, I can pull up the plans.
I just don't want to leave that issue hanging. We're going to come back to it.
Yeah, oh, sure. If you can
Okay.
show, yeah, at some point, if you can show us the calculations, then I don't have to worry about this.
Also, I
Right,
would
if
like
we
to
can show the-
clarify that there is no proposed change to the impervious surfaces on the site with the proposed project. The addition is on hardscaped areas of the property already. So if there is an existing nonconformity, if that was the
I'm sorry, I
case,
can't hear you that well because I can't see your face or.
if there was an existing nonconformity, it's to remain. They're not adding any additional impervious surfaces with the new
Well, of course
project
they are. They're adding 1,100 square feet. That's all impervious.
on an area that's already hardscape. It's a
Oh, that's
concrete
all
pad.
hardscaped already?
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Right, yeah.
okay. Okay, good. Let me go to the next one. And this is a finding 2 on page 4. In finding 2 on page 4, the second paragraph, it's in the middle, it says the proposed project will match the colors and materials of the existing residence. And I'd like to have that taken out because this finding is about appearance and compatibility with the natural setting. So just because you say that the colors and materials match the existing residence, which isn't true, by the way, doesn't mean its appearance is compatible or is high quality, which are the standards that are required. So I don't think it's relevant to say that. I would just take that out. I mean, if you went to the site, you would see that the windows are not the same. Those are not, by the way, wood windows. They're wood and vinyl windows. And you can tell that by that. If you look at the photographs, or if you go on the site, you'll see these metal strips in between the double panes, which is only on a vinyl or metal window. But anyway, they're changing it to black windows. So it's clearly not the same. So, but it doesn't, it's all irrelevant to me. I think if you just took that.
Which sentence specifically?
So if you look in the second paragraph that starts out chapter Roman numeral 9, the sentence 5 lines down that says the proposed project will match the colors and materials of the existing residence. I don't think that's relevant to whether it's compatible with the neighborhood or I mean, with the natural setting or the appearance is high quality. I mean, it's just not relevant that it's the same as the existing house.
So
Okay, so we'll remove that sentence.
That clause, I guess.
You remove that clause, so the sentence simply begins with the architectural review panel recommended approval.
Which is relevant because.
And
They
correct.
did.
And they did, but that is relevant because it's supposed to be high quality and whatever, and they're saying it's good project. So is that okay?
is there consensus among the commission with the chair's recommendation?
Is that it?
I don't have any problem striking that. I think the same, the issue could be resolved by saying we'll match some of the colors and materials of the existing residence, but I don't know that adds that much.
That's okay, but I don't know if it even matters. It's like,
It's untrue.
yeah, it's untrue. And the colors materials to me aren't really relevant to whether it's a good quality appearance or it doesn't have to match really. Is that okay?
The remaining information in the
I'm
finding is
striking
legally
that
sufficient.
Yeah.
You can drop
Okay.
that clause.
And then the third one is the finding 4 on page, finding 4 on page 5. This one I have more problems with. So It's in the right above number 5, that paragraph that starts out additionally. Here we're supposed to find, the planning commission has to find that the project is compatible in design, appearance, and scale with the existing development in the surrounding area. That's why we often have to go out to the sites to look at it. This is also going to apply to item number 3, the commons.
One at a time,
Yeah, no, but it's the same.
one at a time.
Okay. No, well, we're not discussing that
Right.
issue.
Not on, stick to the agenda.
Right. Design, appearance, and scale. So, and at the hearing on the Dante's View project, I asked.
Also, Mr. Chair Harrison,
Yeah,
stick to the agenda item. This is Hatmore, not Dante's View, not Commons, not Caruso.
right.
Hatmore.
I asked previously if a residential project which exceeded a certain size had to be compatible with the neighborhood. I got a funny response about floor area ratios, but the answer is yes, as provided in section 17.62.020F of the municipal code. So it again, it has to be compatible in design, appearance, and scale when you go through a site plan review. And this one had to go through a site plan review because it exceeded 400 square feet and addition, and it was more than 20% of the existing floor area. So the second paragraph there, the first sentence, I would just take out because whether the architectural review panel approved it or not, and made suggestions regarding the roof pitch at the rear of the residence, that's not relevant to whether it's compatible with the neighborhood. That may be relevant for whether it's, high quality or whatever, they approved the design, but that's not the finding that we have to make. So I would and I would even take out the last one. I don't see how you can make that conclusion with that introductory sentence. It's just not relevant. The first couple of sentences, I would take them out and just say that the planning commission determined that the project is compatible in use, design, and appearance and scale with the existing homes in the surrounding area and meets the requirements of that code section 17.62.020F of the municipal code. That's all I think you have to say. Yes.
May I ask, are you
If-
suggesting striking everything in the second paragraph of finding 4 except for the last sentence?
Yeah, and the last sentence is fine, except we should just say the planning commission determined that the proposed project is compatible, et cetera.
Well, Chair Harrison,
Who's speaking?
isn't,
Oh, Wendy. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, sorry,
I heard a voice, but I didn't know where it was from.
it's a voice from above. Isn't the fact that the ARP reviewed the project and approved it, isn't that something that we always consider when making our findings on these projects? And
absolutely.
it was something that we talked about. Well, you talked about, because I was not at the meeting. And it certainly, I think it is certainly relevant. Is it essential? Excuse me, is it essential to put it in here? I don't know if it's essential, but it's certainly relevant. And I just don't see why it needs to come out. It's part of what we consider when making these determinations. So I think that it's certainly applicable to include it in our findings.
So it's in the finding on the previous page when we're talking about the quality of the building, but it's not relevant to whether it's compatible with the neighborhood. The ARP, I mean, I was on the ARP, they don't make a judgment whether it's compatible with the neighborhood. So that their opinion on whether it's good quality and whether the roof pitch has to be changed is not relevant to this section. It's relevant to the previous one of whether this is a good quality in appearance. It has good appearance. Remember the one before where they talk about appearance? See, in number,
It's paragraph 2. You're talking
paragraph
about
2, finding 2.
2. Yeah.
Right. It's and that one is fine because it's relevant to that. but to the compatibility with the neighborhood, that's something we have to determine, the ARP.
Well, and actually,
can add-
since it's,
Let me make a comment if I can.
Yeah,
If you take out the word therefore, comma, the rest of the sentence is just fine.
yes.
And we, in approving this resolution, will deem that it is appropriate.
That's fine. You can take out the word therefore, and you can take out the first couple sentences, which are already in the previous page. So
I would
you
like.
know what,
Is
looking
that
at
what
it,
For the
Is that what
commission.
you're trying to accomplish
Yeah.
with this?
yes. Because it's not relevant what the ARP says about the architecture to whether it's compatible. They don't ever make a finding that it's compatible with the neighborhood.
Chair Harrison, if I may
Yeah.
interject,
Unless they did, but it doesn't say that.
so I'll continue on with the comment that was made by Commissioner Fosberg. The architectural review panel absolutely is in charge, not in charge of, but they do review for neighborhood compatibility. So having that as part of the finding does make sense because we
Okay.
don't,
Then
this
say
finding-
that. Then say
finding
that.
number four-
Then say that. Because it doesn't say that. So if you said the architectural review panel determined that this is compatible with the neighborhood, that's fine. But this doesn't say that. This is talking about roof pitch and appearance.
as part of
If we're
their,
jointly responsible,
But we have to make the finding.
I understand.
Well,
Take out the
there-
word therefore, capitalize the T and the and move on.
Yes, that's fine. But then change the first part. So
And that doesn't.
forget the roof pitch and say they determined that it was compatible with the neighborhood.
There's
well,
no.
but that's fact, that is factual.
I know.
That is the roof pitch is, as I excuse me, as I understand it, that is the suggestion that was made, the suggested change that was made by the ARP, and the change was made. Reciting the findings, and I understand it's in two different places, but it's applicable to do two different items. I don't find it, and again, I have no problem if the word therefore is taken out. But this is applicable, and it's something that we consider when making our findings. So
Well,
to
If we
just
can find-
ignore it
All right.
doesn't make sense to me.
If we can find wording where they said it was compatible with the neighborhood, then we can put that in there. If we don't have any words from them saying that it's compatible with the neighborhood, then we can just say it's compatible with the neighborhood.
Couple of
May I,
suggestions.
hold on.
Go ahead.
May I say something?
Sure.
I think that on balance, the ARP's approval, they couldn't approve if they found it incompatible. So by approving, they are in effect finding it compatible. And striking the word therefore doesn't tie the remainder of the last sentence to what the ARP did. Okay. And I think that what the ARP did in recommending approval is A, finding compatibility, and B, it's a weight. It's simply an additional little weight that you put on the scale. I think this is what Commissioner Fosberg, if I can speak for her, is trying to say, is that it's a piece of evidence. It's a piece of support. The fact they did it helps us make the finding that this section 4 requires. So on
Agreed.
balance, I'm happy to leave the whole second paragraph of 4 alone, other than striking the word therefore.
Okay.
Agreed.
Good suggestion. Yes, Bob.
I would say if you're gonna go down that path, I would suggest pull that, when we talk about the modified last sentence out, make it a separate paragraph prior to the addition of the ARP. Did this or that. But I have no recollection of them saying improve the neighborhood.
No, I don't have any recollection of that either. There was nothing in writing that I
Make
saw.
that Standalone paragraph before.
Can Commissioner Leah, Vice Chair Leah, I'm sorry, is your microphone on in
You're not
front
on.
of you?
Oh, he's
Press
saying,
that
he's
button.
suggesting
Thank you.
splitting the paragraphs. Or splitting that paragraph.
Okay, I'm saying, if we want to go down that path, take the proposed project sentence, that modified sentence, make it a separate paragraph before the additionally the proposed project, separate standalone. And then the additionally can fall.
I mean, that's fine with me.
You're suggesting by putting the first sentence of paragraph 2 as take the last sentence and move it up to be the first sentence of paragraph 2
Separate paragraph before.
or a separate paragraph?
Yeah, so it's,
So it's actually 3 sentences. So I think he means the first 2 sentences would be separate. It's all about the ARP. And then the last sentence is just the proposed project is compatible.
I have no problem with making that a separate and higher up sentence. You'd have to strike the word therefore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to strike the word additionally, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I support that.
That would be fine.
Is that okay? So,
Well, the only thing that's, I guess, troubling about this discussion actually is that the consequence has already been addressed by the operator or the homeowner. They're going to revise the plans accordingly. And they listen to the ARP and they're listening and they will be conditioned ultimately to the commission's decision. I mean, it's almost as if we're,
yeah.
That only applies to.
if we're looking for a belt and suspenders, I guess we could do this, but you can still hold your hands up, your pants up with just one of the two.
But this paragraph, this finding 4 is only talking about the design, appearance, and scale of the project.
But it's up to us anyway,
Right, we're the ones.
and we're doing that as we
Right.
speak.
Right.
So may I suggest, if the commission is going down the lines of separating that out into 2 separate paragraphs, I wouldn't change the order because it's better on a finding to have the conclusionary statement that the project meets the finding at the end. So what I would do is I would separate out the top sentences, get rid of additionally, but just have the statement that it was reviewed by the ARP. That's 1 paragraph. And then the following paragraph would state that based on the above information, the planning commission finds that the proposed project is compatible, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That
That's
makes
good.
sense. One other point to add, and I'll note that based on the planning commission finds at the beginning of this whole section on page 3, but that's okay. You could add in the second sentence about the ARP recommended approval of the project, finding in part that the project is compatible with the neighborhood and made suggestions regarding the roof.
So I don't
Capture the
think,
facts.
I mean, the problem with that is I don't recall that. That wasn't in writing and.
My understanding from staff is that that was part of the ARP's discussions. May not have
Right,
showed up in the
but
minutes, but it was
we
part of
didn't-
the staff.
But it wasn't presented to us maybe. And so I think it's better the way Michael,
That's fine. Strike that second,
yeah.
strike that addition.
And it could be, and maybe in the future, if this is our objective, then the ARP should say that in writing or so. There should be a report saying that.
We can capture it through the minutes from the ARP.
It's also built in.
They don't do an otherwise written report, but the minutes would capture it.
It's also built into their duties. So among the duties of the ARP, it's to review whether or not a proposed project is compatible with the existing and surrounding neighborhood. So as we've mentioned by Commissioner Mueller, if they are recommending approval, then that in effect is them
Okay, all
also acknowledging that it's compatible.
right, good. Well, it sounds like you have come up with the best way to handle it, I think, Michael.
Agreed.
Let's see, I'm okay otherwise with this. So, Wendy, do you have some more comments?
No, I'm good. I'm good with the language that Michael came up with.
Okay,
If I
So-
could clarify that, Chair Harrison, so you want 3 paragraphs in total for finding number 4? The last paragraph will be split into 2 paragraphs. As
yeah, so
mentioned.
the last paragraph, well, Michael said what it is. You would delete the word additionally at the beginning and then the sentence, you get rid of therefore, and it's something like, based on the foregoing, the planning commission,
Fines.
Based on the information,
Fines.
finds.
yeah,
Maybe
based on
put
the
the
information
therefore
above
right
the
there.
planning commission finds.
It's not that complicated.
Can we do this so it can be signed tonight?
Yes, the
You don't
last
have to bring
thing,
it back?
well, the last thing we need to resolve is the condition number 4, number.
Oh,
15.
right. Yeah, thank you.
I don't want to get into a discussion or an argument right now with regards to the numbers. And staff has verified that the project is in compliance with the pervious surface requirement. But if it makes the commission feel more comfortable, a condition stating that a final detailed pervious surface plan shall be submitted to the community development department to determine conformance with the pervious surface requirement.
To demonstrate.
To demonstrate prior to the issuance of a building permit, that's a reasonable condition. Whether, and then from there, they will have to demonstrate what areas may have to be replaced with permeable paving.
I mean, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I thought that was our intention at the last meeting, actually, but that it would be verified, but anyway. How do we proceed, Matt? 'Cause-
So the answer would be a motion to approve the resolution as modified with the adjusted clause in finding 2 on colors and materials, as was stated, deleting that clause. The adjustment just recited to finding 4, and condition number 15 adjusted to delete what's there and instead require that prior to building permit issuance, the applicant shall submit for community development director approval a revised pervious surface plan demonstrating compliance with the city's pervious surface requirements. I think that would meet your goals.
May I say something?
Sure.
The problem with that is that we may lose the benefit that we got from the last hearing, which was where they agreed to do something to make more permeable either the existing driveway or the hardscape area. In other words, if they come back and prove that they already meet the permeable surface requirements by the calculation, which I think they do. I like what Michael, what you extracted at the last hearing was in addition.
Right, they were going to remove one of them.
They were going to do something to either or.
But do we have the right, do we have the right to require them to exceed the requirements of the code?
We have the right,
If they
They
agree.
agreed to it.
we have the right to ask for it, not the right to impose it. If they
Right.
meet the standard, the applicant can withdraw that statement and instead stick to just the code.
The other thing to note is that a lot of properties that are legal non-conforming may not currently meet the code requirement with regards to pervious surface. So by virtue of this project and their proposed site plan, they may be bringing it into conformance. So that does have a net benefit of providing more pervious surface down to what our code requires.
So my recommendation is to leave 15 alone and add the sentence that Michael was suggesting, that the applicant will demonstrate, et cetera. In other words, the property owner shall convert, just as it says, and then a second sentence which says the property owner shall submit whatever you said to demonstrate that. So it kind of makes, because I think that's what they agreed to.
No, that is better. And they did agree to that,
Yeah.
one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't want to recap that, but with all those changes, it's just three changes. Right? The colors, materials out, the pervious surface, and the paragraphs on the compatibility with the neighborhood. Is there a motion to approve? Is that okay to say it like that, Matt? Or
Yep, that's okay.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
is there a second? Second. So all of those in favor, Greg?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
John? Oh, I'll get to Wendy. Yeah.
I don't vote.
John
That's
doesn't
right.
on this one.
I'm sorry. We had a 6-0 vote last time. Okay, Wendy.
I,
And I'm aye. So I think that's unanimous. Thank you for everybody for listening to that. And thank you to the applicant. I think are they still on? Thank them, for this. That's item 1. Now we're going to go to item 3, right?
Yes,
So I think is there a report on this or?
there's a very brief staff report, if I may, staff report. And then I'd recommend we take public comment, which I think is most of the applicant, because they're going to present what they've modified since last time, and then to the commission would be my suggestion. So staff, applicant / public, then commission.
All right, so this is new business consideration of modifications to the city's story pole requirements for the proposed mixed-use project at 4799 Commons Way for a site plan review, 3 conditional use permits, a tentative track map, and a scenic corridor permit. Is it you, Michael?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, this is not a discussion on the actual project. It's a discussion specifically on the city's story pole requirements as it applies to this project. As a very quick recap, the project is located at Commons Way, which is bounded by Calabasas Road to the north, Park Renata to the east, and Civic Center to the west. And of course, we are all sitting right here in the City Hall, just to the west of the subject site. The Planning Commission reviewed this request back on June 15th. This is a request from the applicant to, at that time, to use augmented reality or some sort of digital / virtual tool in lieu of installing story poles at the subject site. At the meeting, the commission continued the discussion and provided the applicant with direction. That direction was that the commission was generally okay with the concept of augmented reality or digital virtual tool to visualize the project. However, the commission did ask the applicant to come back with clarity on proposed signage and community notification, as well as asking the applicant to identify ways to install some story poles on the project site. So with that, between that meeting and this meeting, the applicant studied all of their options, provided a revised story pole narrative, as well as a plan. I'll go through it really briefly, but the applicant is here to go into more details and answer questions from the commission. But essentially what the applicant is proposing now is to install 4 story poles on the subject site. 2 poles would be installed at either ends of one of the proposed buildings, which is they're labeling as building A, the portion of the building that would replace the existing movie theater. And then 2 additional poles installed in the parking lot area at either extent of what they call building B, which are the smaller buildings across the street from, or across the parking area from the movie theater. This plan also shows where they're proposing to provide community signage. The green squares represent kiosks that the applicant is proposing to install along the pedestrian walkway around the common shopping center. Those kiosks will have information about the proposed project, as well as a QR code so that people can scan it and access the augmented reality for the project. There is a limitation on how far those can be because the augmented reality can only be visible from a certain distance. Once you go too far away, you can no longer use that particular tool. And then the blue circles represent more or less billboard signs that they're proposing to install at either corner of the existing shopping center to provide community notification of the proposed project. So again, that's just a brief overview of what has changed from the last discussion. The applicant took the direction from the commission and submitted a proposal that now includes several story poles to be installed at the project location or at the project site. So with that, staff requests that the commission review the applicant's request to modify the city story pole requirements and provide direction to the applicant. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here tonight to answer questions.
All right. Can we take the speakers first or?
Yeah, I'd recommend we take the speakers first and then come
Okay.
back to the commission for.
So first, I just
commentary.
want to announce that we've received a letter from Terry and Rick Young on this. And I have 5 speaker cards. Chamio, there you are. Would you like to come up and speak and just say what city you're a resident of?
Hi. Good evening. I'm a resident of Athens. I stand here tonight to support Caruso's proposal to go with the hybrid solution. As a tech person myself, and with the advent of the augmented reality solution, I think that seems to be the most safest for both the residents who want to envision what the project's going to look like, as well as for those who are visiting and parking. I think it's going to be the most safe solution for the city. So I stand in support of it, and I hope that you can vote yes for it, so that we can see this project come into fruition. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see Eric Duffner. Is he here?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But he's in favor of it. Hybrid. Patty Mardell, I think she's on Zoom. I have 3 cards for people on Zoom.
There is a hand raised from a attendee on Zoom as well.
Well, I have 3 people on Zoom who want to speak. 2 of them
Patty
spoke at the
Mardell.
last meeting, Patty Mardell and Bob Clough.
Allowing Patty Mardell to talk here. Oh, she has her hand raised now.
Yeah, so I called her if she wants to speak, or she's in favor. I know that.
She just has to unmute herself and she should be able to do it.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much, Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak in support. My name is Patty Mardell, and I've been an active resident here in Calabasas for 26 years. And I'm here again this evening just to comment on the proposal that you have before you from Caruso for the story poles and the hybrid approach, which I truly feel is reasonable and it's very thoughtful. Using the advanced technology, which I had mentioned last time too, it's going to really allow the visitors to easily visualize the buildings included in the proposal from, I think, all the locations, from various locations, not just, doing the looking up of the poles. The physical story poles also in place are going to help show the full height of the proposed buildings. And I do want to mention that I truly am appreciative of how Caruso has worked with the commission, with the community to arrive at a very common sense solution. And it does reflect the collaborative and inclusive approach that they have taken to this entire project over the past 2 years. I had the honor of meeting Chris and Blake 2 years ago. And Caruso, Blake, and Chris are very valued members, I believe, of this community, and I hope that their requests will be approved this evening by all of you. And I want to thank you again very much.
Thank you, Patty. I've also got cards from Mike Attar, I think it is.
Hi, yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Attar. I have lived in Calabasas for about 18 plus years or so. And like a lot of residents, I visit the Commons pretty frequently and regularly. It's kind of the heart of Calabasas. Rely on it for groceries, activities, going to the bookstore, eating, dining, meeting friends, all those types of things. I believe the proposed amendment of the project at the Commons is a great plan for the community. I feel like Caruso and his team have taken great efforts to discuss the issues with all residents of Calabasas. Had various meetings that they put on and discuss concerns and issues and what residents were looking for in the plan. I support the story pole proposal before the commissioners tonight. I feel like it offers the best of both worlds, providing a physical representation of the proposed building height and also a robust 3D view of the buildings using technology that didn't exist years ago. I think this interactive approach will give the community a full appreciation for the building's location, height, and overall appearance and presence. And also, I think that the physical poles as an alternative will be a plus. Again, I think Caruso has conducted themselves well and represented the vast majority of the interest of the community in this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your time. I've got another card from Robert Kloss. I don't know if he's there or anybody else for that matter. I don't know how they signed these cards, but I guess somebody's.
Yes, yes, Commissioner. Robert Klaus is present.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Robert Klaus, and I, along with my wife, Amy, and our family, have been Calabasas residents for about 7 years. The Caruso Group has been an outstanding partner to our local community throughout their 25 years in Calabasas, not only by beautifully maintaining the commons, but through generous and extensive community support and engagement. They really, truly exemplify what it means to be a community partner and advocate. As regular visitors to and guests of the Commons at Calabasas, we've been very concerned about the impact of the story pole requirement. It would be incredibly disruptive to set up an array of story poles and heavy weights, along with all the guide wires and other infrastructure. Their proposed hybrid approach is a great solution that will allow us and the public to visualize the new buildings they are proposing without the onerous burden of the full story pole requirement. We want to thank the Commission for its willingness to work with Caruso to find a solution that does not negatively impact our experience of visiting the Commons at Calabasas for the public, and strongly move in favor of approval of the proposal submitted so that the Commons Land New project can proceed in a reasonably timely manner. Thank you very much for your professional services and assistance.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Klaas.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on?
There is, I see a hand raised by Joe Choco. I'm going to allow him to talk.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Joe Chilko, a longtime resident. And yes, I agree that this hybrid approach is probably a good idea. I know that they're talking about putting fencing around the actual physical poles, which seems like a very good idea to me, and that they're painting it some kind of bright color at the top. I don't know what color they have in mind. I know that in other cases, we've talked about orange flags, so something that's going to be visible against the sky would be great. The other thing is that they're saying, yeah, they're going to make this available at least 4 weeks before a public hearing. Now, I have no idea how close we are to a public hearing or whether it's 4 weeks away now. But the sooner it could be made available, the better, I think, from that standpoint. I do not understand how AR, the augmented reality, is created. It does concern me that you have to physically be there in order to see it, as opposed to them being able to do something similar on their current webpage for the project itself. In the event that there are residents who are not visiting it, but would still be interested in seeing it. The other aspect is if you have physical poles up everywhere, well, people can clearly see it from the street. So that's my suggestion, is that they, if possible, make it available as soon as possible, and that they also provide people a means to view it on their project website, so that if you're not physically at the Commons, you can still see it too. And I would like to echo previous speakers' comments. Caruso has done a fabulous job at reaching out to the community. And I know that change is always difficult. And there are probably some aspects of this project that people are concerned about. But the fact of the matter is that they've been very responsive, and I would hope they are going to continue that. I see no reason why they wouldn't. But thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else out there? No?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay.
Mr.
Well-
Chilko can lower his hand if I may recommend it to him.
Chair Harris, I'm not sure if the folks in the audience had wished to speak beside those who spoke already.
The applicant does have a slide deck to show for the.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sure we have questions of the applicant, so I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
The control center upstairs, I believe, is going to be handling the slides.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. It's great to be here with you again tonight. For the record, my name is Chris Robertson. I'm Vice President of Planning, Government, and Community Relations with Caruso. And thank you to Mr. Klein for the staff report and the presentation. So as I'm sure you remember, we had a very robust discussion at the last meeting about the use of AR. The Planning Commission was generally supportive of the use of AR as the primary tool to demonstrate the building's massing. And so as a result of the feedback that we got, we have moved forward with an AR company, and we're really excited to continue to develop that. The commission also had an interest in exploring physical representations of the building height, understanding that we couldn't depict the existing footprint or the proposed footprint or the overall massing, but had an interest in incorporating a pole that demarcated specific points in the proposed building elevations. So we have come up with a two-pronged approach that uses the AR in addition to 4 poles that actually will generally demonstrate the footprint of the building, so long as we can permit them with the relative respective agencies. We have also included ample signage to promote not only the AR and the polls and the project, but also the public hearing, sort of going above and beyond what the city's normal noticing would look like. And then we're also exploring additional public notification and working with the city to incorporate that. So you've already seen this. I won't spend much time on this, but we can drill down a little bit. We put some perspectives together to sort of illustrate. So on the screen, you can see the purple circles illustrate the 4 pole locations. That's very conceptual because there are a spider web of utilities that we need to navigate. There's fire access, road, parking. We need to work with building and safety and public works and the fire department to make sure that all of these locations work. But that will generally be the location of the poles. They'll be surrounded by secure perimeter fencing. We do have to bore into the ground because these will be essentially permanent temporary poles. The depth will be dependent upon the height of the pole, so it'll vary depending on which building it's meant to illustrate. And then we're envisioning the top will be painted with a bright color like green. On this slide, you can see what we're envisioning the billboards might look like. So the blue circles are located on either corner of the commons. The sign is very, very large. It's about 8 by 4 feet. This is an example from another project that we did in the area.
I'm sorry, how large is it?
8 feet by 4 feet.
8 feet, okay.
Yeah, or 30 or 32 square feet.
Thank you.
So we would include a project rendering, information about the project. We would also include information about the public hearings that'll eventually come before this body, opportunities for the community to engage with us directly. We'll have AR, lots of information, and it'll be very, very visible if you're just passing by the site. And then on this slide, you can see the proposed kiosks or signage in the green squares. Again, we need to make sure that these locations work, but essentially we would have signage placed throughout the site that incorporates project renderings. It would have the QR code so that you can scan it with your phone, see the project rendering, interact with the buildings with your phone, and then you would also be able to juxtapose that with the fixed story poles.
Oh, and how many of those are there about?
Those are 4.
4 of those.
Yeah,
Okay.
those little green squares. And like Mr. Klein mentioned, these would be up, throughout the duration of the project review. So going back again to the story pole purpose, which is meant to help the community visualize the location, height, and massing of the building, we feel that we really have gone above and beyond what the story pole procedures require. And our hybrid approach really helps to better illustrate the building by showing how the building will be articulated using the AR. Again, you can cross-reference that with the physical representation, which we understood was important to the commission, and just continues to promote the transparency and public engagement process that we've been involved in for the last 2 years. So we're very, very excited about this hybrid proposal that we've come up with. We appreciate the feedback that you provided at the last meeting. We do feel like this is a better, well-rounded approach that sort of addresses all of the concerns that were raised by the commission, and we're very excited to move forward in the process.
Thank you.
Thank
Don't
you.
go away.
Okay.
Questions from anybody? Dennis or Greg?
I have a few questions.
Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
First, I was not at the last meeting, so I do want to thank you and your team for your efforts to address the concerns and opinions of the commission from that last meeting. Now, I believe you mentioned that building A, the highest point will be 85 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's measured. So the highest point would be basically where the purple circle is in the bottom left on the diagram, but that's 85 feet as measured generally from where the other circle facing that circle is. So there's an elevation difference of about 15 feet from the service road to the surface parking lot. So it's a little hard to conceptualize. That pole will, raise up probably about 70 feet.
The larger pole?
Yes.
Smaller pole.
And it would demonstrate the highest point, which would be the amenity space. And then it would also demonstrate the average top of roof of that building, which is less than 85 feet.
Do you know at this point approximately what percentage of the building will be at 85 or near 85 feet?
It's a very, very, very small area. It's just, we have a very small amenity space on the roof that is almost 85 feet. The rest is it's just a roof.
Now, is that near the rear of that building A?
Yes.
Location of that pole, and the pole on the other side of what is to be building A, is that also on the rear corner? Or at or near what will be the rear
Yes,
corner of
that's
that
near
building?
what would be essentially the theater building sort of is lifted out and the new building is lifted in with that existing footprint. So the poles will generally show the footprint of the proposed building.
My only concern here, it's not exactly, it's the footprint of the rear of the building. My concern is that the front of the building is what imposes itself more on the space. And I'm wondering if there's any way of placing something, whether it's one of these poles or something else at the front corners of these buildings. Because it's very difficult. And I appreciate that the AR will be available. But as was discussed at the meeting, renderings are very different from standing looking up at what is going to be in the space in front of you. Has there been any discussion about what could potentially be placed at the front corners of these buildings?
Well, I think to clarify, it would be misleading to put a pole where you're envisioning because the building actually is not coming up to the front. It's a little hard to see on this plan. I don't know, Mr. Bartlett, if you can sort of hover your mouse, but the majority of the theater is set back around 40 to 90 feet from the ground floor shops and restaurants. So the theater marquee is what's in line with the shops and restaurants. But then once you enter into the theater, you kind of enter into this cavern and that's all tucked back behind. So you really aren't experiencing the building when you're sort of right in front. That pedestrian experience really won't be changing because of those significant inherent setbacks. And then we've also incorporated additional step backs and articulation into the building. I know we won't go into the design elements at tonight's meeting, but
Are you saying that the new building will not protrude out to where the marquee of the theaters is at this point, at this time?
correct. The only part of the building that would project out is like the small little retail sliver that's going there. It's about 2,000 square feet. And that's in line with what's there already. There's no height there.
Okay.
It's also worth noting that we shouldn't get too fixated on the exact location because they're going to have to still do a lot of due diligence to where they can place those poles. There could be a lot of underground issues. So if we mandate it in one spot, they may have to shift it around anyways. So these represent approximate locations for the proposed poles.
Okay, fair enough. Now you mentioned in your proposal that both the maximum height of the roof and the average top of roof will be depicted on the poles. I assume that will be by some different colors at different elevations on the pole.
We could do different colors. Yeah, I don't know that we got into the specific color arrangement, but we could do different colors.
I'm just wondering how people looking at it will know whether they're different colors or some other variation, how will people looking at it know what those different colors or different whatever it is, how will they know what they're depicting?
We imagine most people will be sort of cross-referencing the polls with the building that they see through their phone or their iPad, but we could also include a note on the signage to clarify that if that's something the commission thinks would be helpful.
If I may just add one thing, in the story poll procedures, it is required that the rendering that would be on a sign is supposed to show where the poles are, so that anybody would be looking could correlate where the poles are relative to the rendering itself. So once they know the actual pole locations, they would be able to do that.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's all I have at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Questions, John?
Well, just to summarize that last point, so the poles will have different colors, which haven't yet been decided, which will reflect different elevations of buildings, and those poles can be described both in the signage and in the AR vehicle.
Yes.
Okay, and so there are colors painted on the pole, but there's no flags or any other illustrative technique to show the height.
We envision paint just because it's more durable, and we don't know how long these will be up.
I'm not recommending it, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Okay. And then thank you for that clarification. And then Ms. Robertson, the other question I had was, we have this letter from Caruso, Exhibit A, and it really sets forth in great detail the proposal. On the second page, under the paragraph that says proposal, it talks about after carefully considering the commission's suggestions. And then at the end, it says, as outlined below and shown in the attached exhibit. What is that attached exhibit?
It was this concept plan.
Oh, it's the concept plan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The reason I asked is maybe Tom can help me. Do we have a document anywhere that actually we could adopt as the, assuming we didn't have any changes? This is, I understand this is an illustration of the plan, but the detail of the plan, the description of the AR and the signage and all that is really very well set forth in the letter.
Thank you.
And I just didn't know whether anybody had taken this letter and turned it into something that we could adopt.
Well, the commission could by action effectively adopt the plan as proposed by this letter dated June 28th, which includes Exhibit B that was in the second.
Yeah, I know we can. And I'm never crazy about that because it has lots of surplusage in the document that I would strike before I would adopt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's like after carefully considering what the planning commission suggested. Well, that's nice of you to say, but that's not really legal language for adopting an actual plan. We could go through and strike stuff like that, but I just wondered, the only question was, is there an exhibit I'm missing that sets forth a plan that we could adopt tonight?
No, there's no requirement for a resolution to be adopted by the commission.
Okay.
So what's that recommend is adopting?
Couldn't you just accept it, not adopt?
Approve it.
All right, but if the public walked in and said, I want to see the public record, they would get this Exhibit A and the diagram.
And a set of the minutes from this meeting.
And a set of minutes from the meeting. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions, Bob?
Yeah, I have one preliminary question.
I understand.
The trapezoidal figure depicted by the 4 purple dots, if they were in effect connected, would that demonstrate the mass of the 2 buildings? Is that what they're proposed to do?
Not very realistically, because there are different heights, especially in the parking lot. We have one building that's 1 story. We have one building that's 2 stories, and then we have 2 buildings that's 3 stories. So that's where we've thought like the paint reference might be more helpful in illustrating the different heights in combination with the AR. So you can very clearly see which building is designed with the corresponding elevation point.
Okay, then one thing I'm having trouble grasping, how do 2 points demonstrate a footprint?
Well, the direction we got from the commission at the last meeting was that they understood it wasn't realistic to demonstrate the actual footprint that would be accomplished through the use of the AR, but it was important to you to see like specific fixed elevation points. So that was the intent with this
But
proposal.
this document says it depicts a footprint.
It generally depicts the footprint. So it
But
generally
just-
depicts the outer limits of the building footprints. Which again, you'll be able to cross-reference with the AR. So if you can see the 2 circles behind the theater building, that is generally the extent of the new building A. And then the 2 circles in the surface parking lot are generally the extent of the building B. The only way you actually, demarcate the building footprint is using something like the story poles, which, as we discussed at the last meeting, isn't something that makes sense here.
Or dots. I'm talking even on this example. There could have been dots to demonstrate the footprint of the buildings, as they say it's done, but it is not. I'm just having a problem visualizing it.
Again, I think that's where the use of the AR comes in. So you'll be able to see the actual proposed building and then look up and see the different poles.
Oh, do you have that to show us tonight?
No, we just started developing it based on the feedback last.
Oh, that's hopeful.
Greg, do you have questions? No. Dennis, do you have questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
I actually wanted to hear your opinion first.
Oh, no, I have questions and
Okay.
opinion, but that's different.
I appreciate the structure of the presentation. And I have a few questions about the actual graphics, if I can ask. I'm guessing that the size of the diameters of the circles that are on my map indicate the intensity, or I guess the elevation of the pole. So the biggest pole is going to be the one that's behind Marmalade, essentially.
No, not really. It's meant to conceptually depict the area that the poles would go in. We have to figure out where all the utilities are underneath. We have to work with the fire department to make sure that we can put it there. We have to work with building and safety and public works to figure out all the details. That's sort of like generally where we think we can locate it.
The different size circles don't mean anything other than there is a story pole at each of those purple sites,
Yeah,
but they will be varied in their height.
they will. Yeah, to match.
Tell me where the originally purported 85-foot pole height is going to be placed.
Yeah, it'll be on that where the cursor is hovering there.
It's that one?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is pretty much answered with that in mind. A general comment is that because augmented or virtual reality is a common tool now with Zillow and with Google and many of the realty firms, or even the apartment realty firms these days, you can get a 360 view of the neighborhood, of the property itself, interior, exterior. And it's, I think, valuable for the people of our city to know that they have the capacity ultimately to envision with the help of either their tablet or their cell phone or whatever. So I'm really encouraged by that approach. I guess the traditional question I would have is, it'd be nice to have as-built ultimately, so that when we do decide, and I'm directing this to staff, where the poles are actually placed, that we have a diagrammatic form that I think we had heard from John, that it'd be nice to know that you can orient in a traditional manner by just looking at the poles, but I'm sure that they're going to be synced with the visualizations as well, so that if I'm aiming at an 85-foot tall pole from somewhere in the middle of the center, I'm going to be able to see what building is actually going to be there. It's not just looking at a pole saying, oh, yeah, I got it, kind of.
Right.
So I think that's going to be valuable for us in dealing with this, and much more so than just more poles. That's a personal thought.
And
But I
Commissioner
think
also
having
confirmed that-
as-built would be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Staff, if the commission approves the plan as proposed, staff will receive as-built depicting exactly where each of the poles is placed after it goes through the process of
Right.
utilities and fire. And staff will verify that the poles as precisely placed are appropriately depicted in the AR system.
Sure. I guess the last question is, it'd be helpful, I think, to, as we're thinking about this, what we're showing is the property that Caruso is looking to redevelop essentially here. But the sight lines from certainly the Civic Center should be considered as well. Because if you're standing in front of the senior center or on the deck of the back of the senior center, you'd want to be able to say, oh yeah, that's the pole. So if the AR or VR approach includes sight lines or site representations from the amphitheater, from the library, from the balconies of the city hall, because we designed this city hall so that you could work when it's hot inside and out, on the patio or on the decks that are on our second floor. And the back of the senior center has a deck as well. And each of those sites would be helpful to be able to show you've thought of all this from an AR standpoint, and it helps answer questions that otherwise we might have to answer as staff or commissioners or whatever. So I would hope that you'd be able to build that in for us. And that's pretty much my commentary. I'm happy that you have presented this presentation. One last thought is that if we can go back to the signage that you're proposing.
The billboard type signage.
I'm sure that's a preliminary signage approach, but did you mention in your presentation that you were going to have graphics of the various perspectives from those sign posts? Because you have one at Commons Way, or actually, it's not Commons Way. It's the corner of Calabasas Road and Civic Center Way. The blue dot, right next to the Citibank facility.
Yeah.
And then over near the sign or signage that would be at the King's Fish House adjacent area. The signs at this point look like they're mostly text and describing things, and they do have obviously the ability to scan and then use the AR facility. But is there a plan to actually show what the overall project will look like on or adjacent to the sign that I'm seeing on the screen now?
Yeah, the sign that you're seeing on the screen is from another project, so it's not mocked up. We'll include a rendering. This is really just meant to illustrate the size of the sign. It is very, very large and highly visible from the road. And then the same for the smaller signs on property. Will incorporate, like that rendering is supposed to sort of represent a call out of, what could be included on a sign. And then we'll have project information.
I think that we can all get what the kiosk or the, photo boards will look like, because you're showing me them right now on the screen.
Right. And these are the signs that you're probably all familiar with that are out there,
So there will be graphics on the signage.
Yes.
And my suggestion at the end would be to have a small version of that when you conduct your tours, because I think the tour idea is terrific. And that is, literally a Tuesday afternoon, you're going to meet at 4 o'clock. And, if you want to actually see what it's going to be like with VR or AR and somebody actually hosting you through all that, if the signage is there, or if those are portable signs, then, they should be at the tour sites, where you're looking to make presentations. I think it would be very helpful. Those are my concerns, and you've addressed them all, I think. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. And thank you for the presentation and also for the effort of doing this. I do have some questions and then comments. I guess we can begin. Will the public have to download an application, or can they just use their smartphones or tablet cameras to view it, the project?
They can, I believe they can just use their smartphones or tablets.
So it's like a link to a website or something, not, okay.
I
Because I
believe
hope
it
you don't
just
have to
popped up.
download an application.
We need to
Okay.
confirm it, but our goal and our commitment is to make it as user friendly as possible.
Okay. Can residents view it if that's possible, where you can just go to a site? Will residents be able to view it online? I mean, can they look at this like Google or like what Dennis was talking about from home, or do they have to?
I think what we could look at doing is incorporating like a site plan with fixed perspectives. And then if you go to the website, you can pull up the little video to see what it would look like from that perspective. I'm not sure we would be able to incorporate the entire site into the website. And I don't know that it would be realistically depicted. I think we need to work through that, but I don't see why we couldn't include little snippets like we showed at the last commission meeting on the website.
Okay.
So to essentially function like Google Earth, but specific points.
I mean, I'm looking forward to trying this augmented reality, but I think the tour sounds like much easier, especially if you do pass out iPads, even to people who have smartphones. Not all of us are so tech savvy. And I mean, I know you have a generous offer here of giving iPads to people who don't have smartphones, but I don't think that's really that. The people who don't have smartphones, I don't know how they're going to look at iPads, but
We'll be there. We have an office next door, so we'll be there to help.
But if you have announced tours and you help people, and you hand out even some iPads, I think that's even better than a smartphone, because it's or any tablet really. It's so much bigger.
Sure.
I do like the 4 poles, but I don't think there are enough billboards. And I mean, I hope the billboards have more graphics, more photos, as Dennis was saying. But can you put another one in front of, I guess, the theater area now?
A billboard like this?
Yes, well, not words, but photos and some words. But the problem is where you have the billboards, I don't think half the people enter that way. So most people enter, as far as I know, the way I enter is behind Citibank. I don't go on Calabasas Road. I'm coming from behind Citibank, or I'm enter through Ralph's, where that area. So I would miss both of those billboards always. So
we could definitely put a kiosk,
not a kiosk, but one of those billboards with the big photos.
So those are 8 feet by 4 feet. They're very, very large signs. They're really meant to show for passing cars.
Oh,
they're site posting essentially for like a public hearing.
okay.
So we're using that as a way to publicize the hearing and the project and the AR. There's a lot of information to put on there, but then we'll have similar information on the smaller signs. And I think, one concern about putting the sign right in front of the theater is like I was mentioning earlier, you're not really going to be experiencing the building right in front of the theater. You're going to have to step back because it's set back so significantly from the ground floor. But if that's something that's important to the commission,
Well, I didn't think the billboard is the same thing as like clicking on, the QR code. I thought it was just photographs so that people walking by there can see what's coming.
Yeah, it's photographs, it's information about the hearing, it's a summary of the project. There would be like a link to the website. I mean, we can include whatever information the commission would like that we can fit on there. Like the more information you try to get, the smaller the text is going to become.
Okay. So I'm just hoping you can put either a larger than that kiosk, or maybe it doesn't have to be as big as a billboard, but something, because I think a lot of people will be walking through there or driving through there, and they don't see the billboards on Calabasas Road.
Sure, Harrison, it sounds like that solution may be to have an additional kiosk in the theater in that little area in front of the theater marquee, which people would see. 4 foot by 8 foot sign might not make sense from a safety perspective.
Yes. Well, yeah, they could do that. And then maybe even in I'll get to my next point if you can do this, because there's another place for a kiosk. during those 4 weeks, before the hearing, can you block off? Can you take those little white plastic poles you have now, they're traffic controllers, and some yellow tape or something, and block off the 100 parking spaces and traffic lanes that are going to be permanently lost, so that people have an idea of what that's going to feel like, and then maybe put a kiosk in there, and that would just be plastic, and that's portable. And the reason for that is this is like an important impact. People are going to lose all those spaces permanently, and there's going to be a whole lot more residents, shops, and buildings. So the parking is going to it's going to be, I think, a shock to some people. And I'm wondering
that seems to be getting outside the purview of story polls. I'm just asking if they could do that, if they could block off, because you do it now sometimes. I'm not sure what the reason is, but you block off parking spaces with you have these white poles.
I think Chair Harrison, before Ms. Robertson answers, we can make the ask, but we can't impose that.
I'm just asking if they can.
Well, we cannot impose that. So
I'm just asking if they can, for the 4 weeks or whatever it is, if they can block off, or at least put something so that people know that that's all going to be lost, because I don't think they're going to understand that. And that's a serious impact to me.
I think it's important to keep in mind that when you're going to look at a parking impact, I'm talking just about any project, and somebody's also putting in replacement parking as part of the project, to just try to indicate to the public that this parking will be lost, but you're not also indicating to the public what parking will be gained. You're not necessarily conveying the truth to the public.
But I think, if you take away the parking, people are not going to be parking under building A, the shoppers. So they are going to lose that parking permanently. So I'm just asking if you could do something to show in some realistic manner what that's going to be like, because the purpose of the story polls is to show the building, but this is a big impact and people are going to have to adjust.
And it's noted that's simply not something we can require.
I'm just asking if they can do something.
The ask is okay.
Yeah.
They can refuse.
I think respectfully, we discussed ad nauseum at the last meeting why we can't displace that parking right now. And we complied to the best of our ability to address the commission's comments.
Okay, so I know you said that. So the issue I have, and I don't want to belabor this, is that those spaces are going to be permanently lost, and people are going to have to park somewhere else, and they're not going to be parking under building A, and so I guess you're overparked or whatever, but they're going to have to park somewhere else. That's the point.
So we've seen an ask.
Yeah.
The applicants refused.
Yeah.
We have no power to require it. I'd suggest we focus on what we do have power over, which is the story polls.
Yeah.
So I have comments about that too. No, I'm sorry you can't show that, but it will be an impact.
Well, let's clarify something here. Story polls are gone. We're not doing story polls the way we normally do story polls. So stop throwing story polls at us and say, oh, we're only talking
That's
about
correct. We're doing this modified approach if the commission were to approve it. Story polls and this AR system, augmented reality system.
But if you go back and look at the last meeting, the commission made certain requests be part of the AI, the before and after. I haven't seen anything about before and after at all. So tell me, story polls tells me nothing.
I'm sorry, before and after what?
I'm sorry?
Before and after what? I wasn't following the question.
It wasn't a question, it was a statement. At the last meeting, one of the things we asked for, I in particular, that the people would want to see what was here, not what's going to be, but also what's here is going to be gone. It was important for them to visualize what we were going to do in lieu of story polls. And I have seen nothing, but anytime we talk about it, I get, oh, we're at story polls, we can't talk about it.
But that's why if they blocked off those 100 spaces in traffic lanes, you would know that's where building B is going. And without that, they're not going to know where building B is.
You'll be able to see the
shows that as they present
in the AR. You'll be able to see that in the
Yeah, the
AR.
problem with AR, and I think it's great, is that probably most people won't be able to use it or won't use it. So it's a good alternative, but again, it's not going to be used by most people.
I think we've seen tremendous advances in use of technology as a result of the pandemic. So
I agree. No question. If you do tours and stuff, you'll get more people, but most people will not be going up and go, oh, let me see what they just won't do it. So, but I think if you do those tours or community outreach and get people and help people or show them, I think you'll get more response. But I do agree with Bob. The public does not know where building B is and that all the spaces are gone. Anyway, let me move on. As far as the flag colors and stuff, so forth, remember we talked about flags of some kind, large flags, pennants at the top, like we do with story poles. Can you do, and we use orange. We went over a meeting and we settled on orange. Can you do orange, large orange flag, 5 foot, 6 foot flags, whatever at the top, orange?
So we have to go through some sort of structural review with building and safety and consider wind loads and things like that. That's a much, much larger flag than would be required as a story pole. We're happy to do orange paint.
No, I'm talking about flag. Okay, so maybe it doesn't have to be 5 feet, but it has to be orange and very visible.
We're happy to do orange.
So the colors of the paint, you said green, and but they're going to be different points on the pole where you have different colors, right?
Yeah, we're happy if you want to say the top pole should be orange and the bottom one should be purple and the other one should be green or whatever. We're happy to do.
Yeah, they just have to be, can they just be bright colors?
That's the intent. Yeah, I think
not just green, but like a phosphorescent yellow green, or not just yellow, but bright yellow, like the tape yellow, bright orange, bright red, whatever.
Yeah, we'll do bright.
But the top one has to have some kind of flags, something that really, because that 85 feet or 50 feet is even more than 4 stories, so that's pretty bright. It has to be pretty noticeable at the top. So I hope you can, whatever the largest flag you can put there.
I think we'd be happy to work with the planning director to figure out specifics around.
But flags on the top and then colors at different levels. Right.
Yes, we can do colors at different levels.
Yeah, just to be clear, our suggestion is not necessarily to commit to flags because, as was mentioned by Ms. Robertson, wind load, especially at 85 feet, is a big concern. So I wouldn't want that to basically not allow building and safety to approve the story poles.
Right. Okay, but it has to be some kind of flag because just a color isn't, that's pretty high up there. So people are going to see the building. Obviously, so the flag should be pretty apparent.
So I guess the question is, if building and safety determines that flags don't work at a wind load perspective, would the commission allow the staff to approve no flags? That's what I hear the director saying.
I don't think we would have a choice, really.
Correct.
But I'm hoping that you can put some flags. We do flags on story poles, and they could be tall.
They're not usually 85 feet,
but they're not that tall. Right. So whatever.
Well, Michael, can I ask you?
Oh, yeah, I'm still getting more questions. I'm sorry.
You've been talking about building A, but the parking that you're referring to, I'm guessing is really building B that you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I wanted demarcated.
What I'm saying is that you've been saying building A.
Oh.
And building A is the theater footprint.
No, I wanted building B area to be blocked off, but did I say that? If I said that wrong, I'm sorry. I meant the lower structures with the retail.
And there is parking under building B, but it obviously is going to.
For building B.
And also
there's residents.
No, it's actually.
There's a surplus of parking.
It's my understanding, as your original proposal told us, that parking will be eventually, when all this is done, shared, on site, not only the residents of building B and that complex are going to be parking in that lot.
Oh, are retail guests allowed to park under building B?
Well, again, let's not get too far off the story pole concept. Well, these are definitely questions that can come up.
But I think we should answer the direct question. Yes, the project as proposed includes some parking. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it includes some parking that will be for residents and other parking that will be for retail. I'll ask that to be confirmed. Is that correct?
Is that true?
And today we're only deciding on the story pole setup and guidelines variance that we're talking about at this point.
Not a variance, modification, but yeah, is it correct that there's some?
I just want to make sure we're clear on
for
that.
residents,
right?
Retail.
The reason why we're talking about this,
okay.
The reason why we're talking about this is because I want the public to be able to see where building B is. And we could just say, no, we don't approve this. And then what? They have to put up story poles.
Or
So
they
let's,
appeal to
so,
city council.
hold off a second and we'll find out what they can do or can't do.
Right. And
All right,
I'm also just letting the commission know that a parking analysis can be part of the conversation when the project actually moves forward to a public hearing. And that is part of the agenda. The parking discussion is not part of the agenda tonight.
Okay, but those spaces are pretty much going to be lost and people are going to be parking somewhere else because there's other parking apparently.
Chair Harrison, I think what
Right.
the director is trying to say is that those spaces are not lost in the project. Some of them will be built above with housing. However, there will be replacement parking as part of the overall project that will replace some portion of those spaces. They will still be available to shoppers. I don't know the numbers, and the numbers are not on tonight's agenda.
Right.
The focus
but
tonight is about
it's-
the story pole
clearly-
alternative
All right,
approaches.
I don't want to argue this. It's just obvious that it's not going to be the same. People are going to have to locate their cars somewhere else. That's it.
Or they'll
So-
be able to park underneath that building.
Yeah, but not so many because there's a huge number of additional shops and residents there. So they're going to be moving around. They're going to have to go somewhere else. That's why I wanted it blocked off so that people would get used to parking somewhere else. And there are other spaces. That's why I wanted, because this is all about story poles.
And
This is
that's
all about
not part
showing-
of this. The story poles project is designed
Right,
to
but
show bulk and
I've already
mass.
explained it. I'm sorry you guys don't understand it. I'm trying to show where building B is. And the
And
one.
that's done through the AR, as I understand
No,
it.
but that's also could be done if they blocked off all that parking. That's
So
what we're building.
you made the request.
Right.
They've refused.
And right.
Move
And
forward.
again, we can vote no.
Correct. Absolutely.
So, okay.
I don't think they've refused, you've refused.
I understood her to refuse it, but I'll ask her
She
to
said
clarify.
she doesn't-
Are you
can't do
refusing
it.
that?
Well, we discussed last time that we just can't displace those parking spaces for an indeterminate amount of time. And it's just too much of an impact on our tenants. We have over 30 tenants at the Commons, all with different leases. So again, we feel that we've done a really great job at addressing the issues that the commission raised last time. We want to be able to have these discussions around parking. I know it's a very important issue to the community, just as it is to us. And we're just asking for the ability to continue moving forward in the process so that we can have those discussions.
All right, thank you. I'm not sure it's adequate, but we need to get comments or comments from the other commissioners. John, do you have other comments?
And there were no other members of the public on Zoom, right? I don't think.
No. Do you have any? And Wendy, we're going to get to you. Wendy, do you have comments?
I actually had one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
It appeared from the rendering, I'm sorry, the rendering that you showed, that the buildings appeared to be facing each other. These poles, and I mean directly facing each other. These poles do not directly face each other. What is anticipated in terms of the orientation of the two buildings?
Well, maybe you can hover your cursor over to help illustrate, but building B will essentially follow the southernmost parking aisle and wrap around to that northern purple circle.
Okay, so are the two circles on that are part of building B, are those on the northernmost end of excuse me, of where you anticipate building B to be?
The northwest, the northwest, and then generally the northeast. Generally.
Okay.
Again, we have to diligence.
So are you saying that building B wraps around, it's not a straight line?
Correct.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions, Greg?
I have plenty
Yeah,
of
I'm good.
discussion amongst the commissioners. I don't have any questions.
Oh, all right. So let's go to discussion then.
I just want to confirm that with respect to flags, we are likely going to make a condition that requires a flag on the top of the poles if building and safety can do it safely and in a reasonable engineering manner. If the answer to that after the Building and Safety Committee and your group looks at it and says the wind load is too much, I think we're going to leave, I'd like to leave that as an open question. If it can be done reasonably, cost efficiently, safely, then do it. But if you can't, I don't want to have to bring this back and change it again. That's my view on the flag. That's what I heard.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, yeah, subject to depth and wind loads and utilities and all that stuff. We can work out the details with the planning department.
Big comments and questions?
Yeah, I have some comments. The intent of the story poles is twofold. It's to illustrate height and it's to illustrate massing. You're not illustrating massing with this plan.
We are illustrating massing with the use of the AR.
We're talking about story poles. You are not illustrating massing with the way you propose to put these story poles whatsoever. You're basically drawing a straight line between the two of them. You're not giving approximate building corners. You're not illustrating massing.
We're not doing story poles because it's not feasible here, but we are doing physical representations of the height and the spirit of the commission's direction at the last meeting, in addition to the augmented reality, which will illustrate the articulation.
So what are these circles on your plan supposed to be then?
They're poles.
You just told me we weren't doing story poles.
So story poles are very clearly spelled out in the story pole procedure. These are going to be large wood poles. And some of them will have to add composite features on because we can't get poles to the specifications needed. And we have to, that's why we have to bore into the ground. We have to do.
I understand all that.
Footings. Yeah.
These aren't necessarily questions for you, but I'll just continue. You're not illustrating massing on either of these buildings with two story poles at each end of the building. You're simply not representing massing. And that's a problem for me. There is significant massing at the northwest corner of building A, where that building goes all the way to the property line. There's no representation of the back or the front of the building for either of these. In either of these cases, there's no representation of the front and back of the building, which is part of the intent of the story pole requirement. So in my mind, you're not satisfying the minimum standard that you should have with respect to story poles and depicting massing. I agree, you're depicting height, that's fine. I agree with Michael and some of the others that we need something bright on the top. I don't care what it is, but my problem here is you're not illustrating massing. And the other problem that I have is that this is a 3-dimensional problem that you're trying to solve with 2 dimensions with your augmented reality. The phone screen is a 2-dimensional tool, and this is a 3-dimensional problem. That was appropriate. Okay. So that's my initial comments here are that you are not satisfying a significant requirement of the story pole, a significant aspect of the story pole ordinance. That's my first comment. The second comment is I got this plan here. It doesn't show the proposed buildings on it. It barely shows some of the existing buildings. So what I did myself was I got this to a scale and I superimposed the proposed buildings onto this diagram, which does not show the proposed buildings. So what you have to realize is that this drawing is not at all sufficient for being able to accurately and accurately locate story poles. For example, the circle at the west side of building A, the diameter of that circle is 130 feet. The diameter of the circle at the southeast corner of that building is 90 feet. The diameter of the 2 circles representing the north ends of building B, which is actually 4 buildings, is 70 feet. So I have a problem. I can't, in good conscience, approve this plan without a precise or close to precise pole location. To be able to move the pole 70 feet in either direction, that's not acceptable to me.
we have, again, it's not because we're trying to be secretive about anything. There are a ton of utilities back there. That's a fire access road that we have to work with fire department on, a building and safety. We have to bore down. There are a lot of different things that we have to take into consideration. So, but those are the areas we think we can locate a pole in, but I can't tell you this will be the lat long of the exact pole at this time. But, we would ask you to trust us. The new building will go into the location of the theater. We can't encroach onto the theater. This will accurately illustrate the placement of building A.
In my mind, 4-story poles to show the massing of each one of these buildings is not unreasonable. In fact, it's very reasonable, particularly compared to the plan that you provided us that showed like 80 of them. I think that it's reasonable to have a reduced number, but I think you need at least 4 poles to represent each building, or it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't satisfy the intent of the ordinance. Something has to be, I don't care if you show mid-height elevations, but you need to show something brightly colored that illustrates the max height of the building. I don't care what's in between.
That's exactly what this is intended to do.
Okay, well, so bright orange, green isn't exactly what I would expect to see. I would expect to see something bright orange, red, fluorescent, something that will catch your eye. The rest of what you propose to do is fine. The augmented reality is fine, but I'd rather have reality and not augmented reality. And in this day and age, with the with the electronic stuff, no one knows what's real and what's not real. And story poles are real. Story poles are a physical, actual representation that people can stand there and look at. I don't believe that the augmented reality by itself is appropriate for this. I'd like to see a detail in the end. I don't approve of this plan, and I'd like to see a detail in the end that shows a little more about how you'd like to demark the building height, how you propose to show that very clearly. That's all.
Oh, that's all. I mean, I think there's a majority behind you, but Dennis?
I've already made my comments.
Oh, okay. Bob? You agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, and I agree with everything he said as well. And that's why I gave you an opportunity to block off the parking. And with that, you could show the dimensions of those buildings, building B or whatever, but you don't want to do it. So
with respect, we took the direction of the commission at the last meeting. We've put a lot of effort into putting this proposal together, and it does address the feedback that we got from commission in June.
It does not address massing. It does not address
right.
massing.
It doesn't address massing, and it would if you blocked off all that parking, you could put up more poles. John, do you have final comments?
Yes, even though I'm not voting tonight, I would vote to approve Exhibit A and Exhibit B as going forward with their proposed plan with the flag addendum that I previously discussed. I think that the story pole regulation is clear that when story poles cannot be practicably done, one can go forward with a proposal without story poles, any story poles. That's fact. I thought they made a pretty good case the first time that given the difficulty of putting story poles in at all and putting them at the heights and given the problems with the location and the utilities was persuasive to me. The fact they've come back with 4 very substantial poles protected and frankly, leaving the parking open, which is, I think they've made a very good case that's necessary. Blocking it off for a month or more would be a disaster for this commons. I think they made a very good case against doing that. I understand Greg's point on massing, but I have a lot more optimism about people being able to use the AR and adequately assess the massing issue by using the AR in various locations in the commons and to the extent possible online. So were I voting, I would absolutely support approving this proposal as set forth in exhibits A and B.
Did you make a motion?
So I have to hear, we should hear from Wendy.
Wendy has.
Okay, well, I agree 100% with John. And I'm a little disturbed by the fact that a lot has gone into this. And there was a meeting in June, and there was discussion of height, and there was excuse me, there was discussion of massing. And I felt from watching it all that the commissioners were pretty satisfied that the AR, in the light of the fact that story poles just are not feasible here, that the AR would do in terms of massing, but there was a concern about the height, because 85 feet it's a lot. And I think that they have addressed the issue of height with these poles. Look, we're dealing with a functioning, very busy center that has a lot of our residents there on a consistent basis. And we have to be mindful of the safety of the people who are utilizing this center during this process. And that puts major constraints on what can and cannot be done. And I'm concerned that direction was given, and the Caruso team came back seemingly addressing those concerns as best they can practicably do so. And now it seems we're back to square one, and I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's right. I think that they've done what they can to address the concerns of the commission. And I most definitely would be in favor of approving this.
All right, do we need a motion?
Well, let me make a comment
Favor or against?
following on what Wendy has said. The ultimate test of whether this project is going forward is ultimately not going to be story poles or AR. It's going to be the careful review of staff and the commission and the council ultimately, if it's appealed. So I think what we've seen is that this is a respectable alternative at this point, because we have dealt with the height. The massing is going to have to be essentially assumed with the experience of the alternative reality presentation. And we know that it's being done by many companies right now to deal with everything from real estate sales to driving a car. So, I mean, ultimately, we're improving the ability of the people of Calabasas to say, I think this is going to be a good project. And yes, I have to deal with these other issues, including the potential shifting of the burden of parking onto other sites or other mechanisms of one kind or another in order to deal with it. But that's going to come out in the presentation, not in the alternative as to, whether you're going to have poles or more poles versus the poles we're seeing, and an alternative reality approach that is, as they have said to us, is going to be very public and very representative of all the things they've done. And I think we have experience with the folks at Caruso. They deliver what they tell us they're going to. I mean, I was at the opening of the Commons in the first place, and we're all proud of the place. And we're even defending the importance of the place as it is in our community now. So this is a step. It's a step that isn't going to approve or deny the project. This is a step that allows us to move forward with a reasonable expectation we're going to have a better outcome at the end.
May I?
So if there is a motion, unless you want to talk some more.
I want to comment on what was said. I think that we
You
have
have to talk
moved,
into the mic, I think.
I think that we have moved drastically away from the story pole plan that they initially presented. We anticipated, I certainly anticipated that they were going to come back with something to demonstrate what the AI would do to supplement what was taken away. Unfortunately, we did not see that. I did not see that. So we're left with what is going to happen?
I'm just disappointed that you didn't block off that you're not willing to block off that one section, which would definitely show us building B. So
With respect, that's not the purpose of the story polls, and it's not the direction we were given at the last
Right.
meeting. To
So-
follow up on Commissioner Fosberg's comments, it was very clear from the commission that the augmented reality would check the box of depicting the building articulation and massing.
that's
So we
true for
mo-
the people who will use it, but I still think the vast majority of people will not use it and not be able to use it.
That was
So,
not the discussion at the last
right.
meeting.
I don't, well, that didn't come up. It wasn't for us to decide. Anyway, is there a motion? Or do we just
Make a
table it?
motion.
Can I make a motion?
I'm
Not voting.
not voting.
I'll make
Andy?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the alternative proposal to story polls that is depicted on Exhibit A, the Caruso letter of June 28th of 2023, and Exhibit B. What would you call Exhibit B?
Schematic.
Illustrative story pole concept plan.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that is my
Is
motion.
there a second to that?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All right, Greg, how would you vote?
No.
Dennis?
Aye.
I guess you can't. Bob?
No.
No. And Wendy?
Aye.
And I'll vote no. So that motion doesn't pass.
Well, wait a minute. You have 5 commissioners
Right.
that are voting, and you have 3 ayes from the commissioners. I think I heard you say aye.
And I'm not,
John doesn't get to vote.
I don't get to vote.
You're not voting.
He's the alternate.
He's
because-
participating.
I'm the alternate.
You are the
Tonight.
alternate. So
Yeah, he's
Greg, you're the-
participating, coming
you're
up
the
with
commissioner.
ideas.
Correct.
So do we need to make another motion or is that it?
Staff would ask, so at the moment, no action's taken. If the commission, it'd be helpful to have an action taken.
So I think they've had some ideas of what we're looking for, some depiction of the mass and I think more billboards and the parking blocked off. I don't know what else is.
The question is going to be, is the applicant willing to make any change or they can appeal? Or they can appeal the denial.
Right.
That could work too.
Yeah.
I don't know if the applicant intends to continue to find an approach that would meet the majority of the commission's concerns, or will they seek a higher authority? I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. So
I don't know if they know the answer to that question.
We don't need to have another action.
So then, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we didn't approve it, but it's up to you how you want to proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for all the work you put into this. Then we go on to item 4, which I think is the director's report.
Good evening. The only thing that I have to report is that we are planning on having a meeting on July 20th. There is a public hearing item that is scheduled for that meeting. And then following that, we are anticipating having another meeting on August 3rd for another public hearing item.
I've got a question. Is there any way to have an item updating us, the Planning Commission, on the changes in the rules that will allow applicants to build by right? Or also on that table, Roman numeral 5-3 in the housing element that lists all these sites in the affordable housing overlay zone. And there are only 8 of them, and 2 of them are, 2 of them are already being developed. So because I don't understand how the numbers on the net unit potential are now 50% higher or something. I mean, I'm just unaware of what the laws are and what the numbers are now. And I'd like to go side by side and see what the result could be. Maybe we need to hear what the new laws are that affect this. And maybe we need to reanalyze what's in and what's not in, and maybe put some other sites in.
We would need council direction to rewrite the housing element. We have no such council direction to rewrite the housing element.
But can we
So
get the new laws at least that are causing changes or
We
possible
can
changes?
absolutely put together a written memo on the new laws, but we would need council direction before we discuss
okay.
amending.
Well,
the
at
site.
least-
So why don't we start with a memo?
Yes, a memo would be great because I'm unclear how those numbers are, or some people are claiming those numbers aren't the numbers anymore.
Right,
So-
state laws overlay those numbers.
So I
That's
don't
the
know
most
that
important thing. We can write that out, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we're the planning commission. We should know what's going on with that, you know, with those numbers. I appreciate it. So are there any other questions or comments, report from the planning commissioners? Anybody?
Nothing.
No? So then then we can adjourn in memory of Mel Wolf. Is that all right? Hopefully we don't need to vote on that or. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we're adjourning in memory of Mel Wolf. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.